Welcome back to Kleppers Corner. Today in History, the show where one measly square on the calendar somehow contains more political upheaval, collapsing empires, exploding hillsides, star-born revelations, and bureaucratic incompetence than an entire Netflix docuseries about 2025. November 23rd is not a date. It's a hazard zone. It's like the universe took one look at the calendar and said, let's cram as much chaos as possible right here. And humans, being humans, really followed through. So buckle up. Today we're revisiting a day that launched revolutions, imprisoned dictators, destroyed cities, created galaxies, and, for the British, premiered a time-traveling alien in a blue box who still cannot escape bad budgeting. Let's dive in. Segment 1, the conquest of Seville, because medieval Europe loved a long siege. On November 23, 1248, Seville finally surrendered to Ferdinand III of Castile after 16 months, which is an amount of time normally reserved for home renovations, not warfare. And yet, in typical medieval fashion, this siege involved pontoon bridges, naval blockades, starvation, and enough religious visions to fill a group chat of medieval hallucinations. Ferdinand III saw this as divine destiny. God wants me to have this city, which historically is what kings say right before they take something that does not belong to them. The Almohads were starving, the Castilians were hungry, and the Guadalquivir River was just trying to mind its own business. When the famous bridge of boats was shattered, Seville's fate was sealed faster than the expiration date on a medieval salted fish barrel. And when Ferdinand rolled in, he didn't just take the city, he redecorated. Mosque, cathedral. City, Christianized. Residents, roughly 300,000 of them said no thanks and fled to Grenada or North Africa. That's not a migration, that's a medieval Black Friday exit. Seville becomes a cornerstone for Catholic Spain. Ferdinand becomes Saint Ferdinand, and the Reconquista gets its big season finale. Boom. November 23rd is already off to a very quiet start, historically speaking. Segment 2, Tudela, 1808. Spain tries coordinated leadership and fails. Fast forward to 1808, where the Spanish army attempts something bold, teamwork. Unfortunately, teamwork decides not to attend. The Battle of Tudela is what happens when you put 45,000 Spanish soldiers under 3 commanders who hate each other more than the comment section under any political video. Napoleon's marshal, Jean Lannes, could practically smell the dysfunction. Spanish forces were scattered, disorganized, and divided by a river, which is exactly where you do not want your army to be when the French show up. Lannes launches his attack. Spanish generals are still arguing about whose turn it is to lead. The center collapses faster than a folding chair at a county fair. The French lose 700 men. Spain loses 6,000, and arguably its remaining dignity. The retreat becomes a scattershot guerrilla seed bank, the accidental start of the Spanish ulcer that will eventually drive Napoleon insane. If you want to know why Napoleon lost Spain, Tudela is your prequel episode. Segment 3, Pretenders, Martyrs, and Milton. Telling Parliament to chill, England had quite a November 23rd of its own. Starting with Perkin Warbeck, the man who said, I might be a prince, and England said, you might be hanged. Henry VII finally decides enough is enough and hangs Warbeck at Tyburn in 1499, bringing an end to a decade of dynastic trolling. Warbeck's entire career was basically medieval identity theft, complete with a suspicious confession at the end that feels like the Tudor version of clicking I accept without reading the terms. Then we jump to 1867 and the Manchester Martyrs, 3 Irish nationalists whose execution ignites outrage and becomes a rallying cry for Irish independence. If November 23rd has a mood, it's state violence meets public backlash. And then, like a palate cleanser, November 23rd also gives us John Milton's Areopagitica in 1644, the pamphlet that said, hey, Parliament, maybe books shouldn't need your approval like medieval TikTok drafts. It is the foundational argument for free speech and open debate, written by a man who basically invented the intellectual subtweet. Segment 4, Orchard Knob. Grant shows up, moves a hill, saves a city. On November 23, 1863, Grant launches the opening move of the Battle of Chattanooga by capturing Orchard Knob, a tiny hill that becomes the Union's VIP viewing platform for the rest of the battle. Imagine being a Confederate soldier watching 14,000 Union troops casually stroll toward your position like they're walking into a Cracker Barrel. You fire a volley and suddenly you're outnumbered 20-1. The whole thing is over in minutes. Grant now has a panoramic view of the Confederate defenses, which he will use to orchestrate one of the most unintentionally successful uphill charges in American history 2 days later. Orchard Knob is basically the setup episode before the explosive season finale of Missionary Ridge. Segment 5, Operation Uranus, the day Hitler's worst idea got worse. November 23, 1942, Stalingrad, where the Soviet Red Army completes its giant cosmic bear trap, encircling nearly 300,000 Axis troops in a pocket so tight it makes skinny jeans look roomy. Here's the plot twist. Paulus asks to break out. Hitler says no. Goering says the Luftwaffe can supply an entire army by air, which is like me saying I can run the New York Marathon because I've once jogged through an airport to make a connection. The numbers don't add up, the planes don't arrive, and the German 6th Army spends the winter starving like a very tragic wrapped sandwich. Operation Uranus flips the script on the Eastern Front. This is the moment when the war's momentum permanently leaves Team Swastika and moves to Team Red Army. Segment 6, Revolution in Georgia, Massacre in the Philippines, and whatever Yemen calls stability. November 23rd continues its world tour with some modern upheaval. In 2003, Georgia's Rose Revolution peaks when protesters carrying roses, the softest revolution accessory ever, walk straight into Parliament and tell President Shevardnadze to pack it up. He resigns hours later, mumbling about his memoirs. The whole thing feels like if your grandma staged a coup using a flower arrangement. Then there's 2009, the Maguindanao Massacre in the Philippines, the deadliest attack on journalists in history. A convoy heading to file election paperwork gets ambushed. 58 killed, 32 of them journalists. It exposes a level of political warlordism that makes medieval Europe look underregulated. Finally, 2011. Yemen's Ali Abdullah Saleh signs away power after 33 years. A political career longer than many empires and most marriages. He gets immunity. Yemen gets chaos. Everyone gets regret. November 23rd is not gentle. Segment 7, Culture Break. Life Magazine, Doctor Who, and World of Warcraft. Sometimes November 23rd decides to be whimsical. In 1936, Life magazine launches, giving Americans something they'd never had before, the ability to witness the world through powerful photojournalism. Life becomes the Instagram of its day, except instead of brunch photos, it's dams, wars, and Marilyn Monroe. In 1963, Doctor Who premieres, the day after JFK's assassination. The episode gets delayed, ignored, replayed, and then becomes the cornerstone of British geekdom for 6 decades. The BBC wanted educational sci-fi. Instead, they accidentally invented Comic-Con. Then, 2004 gives us World of Warcraft, the MMORPG that devoured productivity, ended relationships, and taught a generation of teenagers the true meaning of, I need to log off in 5 minutes. They lied. Segment 8, Earthquakes, Rhinos, and the Expanding Universe. Nature also gets in on the action. The 1980 Irpinia earthquake devastates southern Italy, killing over 2,700 people, and exposing the fact that Italian construction codes were apparently written by whoever designed Jenga. Then, in 2019, Malaysia loses its last Sumatran rhino. Humanity collectively shrugs because we are very bad at this living planet thing. But we also get wonder. In 1924, Hubble proves Andromeda is a galaxy, not a cloud inside the Milky Way. The universe expands, our ego deflates, and astronomy departments everywhere say, "See, we told you stars matter." And then, in 2015, Blue Origin lands a rocket vertically for the first time, proving spaceflight can be reusable and that Jeff Bezos really wants to go where no billionaire has gone before, slightly higher. In conclusion, November 23rd is a cosmic warehouse packed with world-shaping events. Cities fall, armies break, revolutions bloom, galaxies expand, rockets land, magazines launch, earthquakes shake, and fictional aliens debut in wobbly sets. It is a day where everything happens. Empires rise and collapse. Governments execute and negotiate. And humanity alternates between enlightenment and absolute nonsense. If November 23rd teaches us anything, it's this. History is not a straight line. It's a crowded intersection where everyone refuses to yield. And on this date, more than almost any other, the world decided to hit the gas.